And here we are, we're being recorded. Welcome back everyone to week 3. Thank you so much for your time and effort in, coming to these weekly sessions. It really does mean a lot to me, and I think it's a value that we do gather once a week to talk about stuff. And as we all know, because we were all just here, before we started the recording, we fixed up some access stuff because of some issues in the Moodle. But again, like I said, I'll follow them up and you've got what you need now. So life is good. Let's begin. So our normal sort of front slide here, we're beginning the idea of alternating now. So most of the content in tonight's session is going to be on the resource development unit, which we were just looking at, and we'll be talking through it. So let's have a look at our schedule. Oh, you're in a Teams. I'll delete this slide from next week, but just thought I'd keep it up for the first couple of weeks. And here we are. So we're going to do a bit of a catch up and put this new thing in about progress points and assessments. So at the beginning, we'll talk about, hey, what kind of stuff should we be doing? Should we have done? Should we be around about up to? Just as a way of trying to get ourselves, in a bit of a role, on a bit of a schedule and stuff. Then we'll have some time to talk about some actual content from the topics. And of course, this week it'll come from the resource development unit. Next week it'll be from our other unit. And then we'll go into what's next and a general Q&A, which is kind of sometimes, I think, almost the best bit, isn't it, when we get there. So, progress points. What are we doing? Just, you got that email that first of all came out with an incorrect date, but then was sent out again. So that census date, if for some reason you have to disappear, which I hope you don't, because I really enjoy our group. In the Moodle, and we were just in there before, just a few things. You don't have to answer yes or no to these, but just some stuff that has been done. Hopefully when you're in there and on your dashboard, you should start to see stuff popping up on the side. Again, just another way of helping you keep track of what's coming up and what's important. You should be getting now from any forums, and that announcement forum in particular, for example, when I put something up there, you should be getting an email saying this is what's gone on that forum post, and that email should be going to your preferred email address. If you haven't received that, it could be that if you haven't received that, it could be, I don't know. If you haven't received that, it could be that those emails are going to your TAFE email address, because by default, Moodle sets up your TAFE email address with that. So if you haven't updated your preferred email address, either tonight, if we've got time, I can jump back on and show you where to do it, or if not, I can give you a call and we can talk it through one-on-one if you want to. You might have noticed on the assessment tab quite a bit of updates. So I put up an assessment checklist. I put up the same checklist on both paired subjects, because the checklist has all of the assessments for both subjects, with the idea being it's in due date order, so you can sort of run through them. I only need to download it once, obviously. I put up a little forum chat on the assessment tab as well, so that just a place to talk about assessments. So pretty self-explanatory. There's a bit of a blurb, a place to pop in and go, oh, I don't know about this, or I can't find that, or help me, I'm drowning, or anyone's got some ideas. Of course, there are for both subjects that list of forum starters. We talked a bit about them before. So between most subjects, I think there's between 10 and 15 different sort of starters, and the idea is for that assessment about forum participation towards the end of the semester, you'll have done at least 5 for maximum marks, at least 5 that have got some references in them. So that's a good way of participating and engaging, and also getting a reward for doing that. What do you think about the learner guides? How funny is that? I forgot I actually had that on that line there. It's via topics, not weeks. And thank goodness we fixed it, because I guess you guys would have said, Kath, I don't think much about the learner guides at all because I can't get them. So, I don't know, that's a bit funny. Let's have a look at what our upcoming assessments are. So, all right, here is this questions you were talking about before. But so the 15th of March, which is, I think from memory, is it next week? Not this Sunday coming, but next Sunday. There's this case study 1. So that's the first assessment that's due, and then you can see how they sort of roll down. Remember, that's by due date, but if you can, jump on and get anything else done earlier, great. One, that'll help around this June kind of week where you've got a lot of things to do. And also, to be honest, it helps me too, because if I get them a bit earlier, I can get them marked and back up to you and all that kind of stuff. So let's look at our first one coming up, because that's sort of the most important one. We're going to do this each week, so we'll get back to the others. So from last week, what's this assessment all about? Now, it's only worth 10%. So, I'm not saying, well, obviously you do it, but back up here when we've got some really big ones that are worth 40% and stuff like that, that's an indication of, wow, that's going to need quite a lot of my time. Ones that are 10%, they're beginning to get things sorted. So basically, Bloom's classification is going to be used for a case study, the new machinery at the workplace, and I probably should have, I am in here. Let me go here, because I'm quite sure with this one, my computer's a bit slow. I'm actually hotspotting it off my phone because our NBN has been mucked up, which is a bit annoying. So here's the assessment tab. And you can see, so maybe that subject guide might not have the right link there, the same problem as the others, but you should be able to access this. You should be able to open this. I'll let it open for a bit. There's that forum I was telling you about. It's optional, place to chitter chat if you want to. Here's our first assessment here. So when you clicked on that assessment, it says do this, download a copy of the assessment document to be completed, upload your completed assessment here, and I'll be able to mark it and upload your completed rubrics here. You guys are lucky, you're the only one I've done this actual, like a Word document version of what was in the subject guide. In a perfect world, I'll get to do one of these for every assessment over all the subjects, but I did want to do this for you because I know that the tables can be a bit hard to copy and paste and reproduce. So and the checklist, again, you should be able to click here and it should take you to a place where you can just download this checklist. All right, hopefully that didn't make you too dizzy as we were clicking around there. So I'll come back here so I can see any chat and bring back up this. So that's where you get it. Your marks will get back with the completed rubrics, similar to what we've done last year. And the criteria you're being marked against is basically those levels of Bloom's classification. And when you have a look at the table, guys, I think you'll be pretty happy with this assessment because it's really not that big and it's really not that hard. So it's probably a good one to get done, get knocked over and get out of the way. Any thoughts from anyone? Anyone want to say anything? Okay, so again, each week we'll set aside some time to talk about what's coming up and sharing that stuff. How close are we to 6:15? We are almost bang on, so that's pretty cool. Okay, so let's get into the actual sort of content of our subject here. So our subject is about, excuse me, developing learner resources, and the topics at the moment for both week 3 and week 4 is the same topic, and it's about what are some instructional design models. Now, I'm mindful that up until 10 minutes ago, none of you were able to have had any of your learner guides, so you haven't been able to see any of the other past information. So some of this might be a little bit, oh my goodness, head's a bit spinny. But I'm hopeful that when you do open up and look at the learner guides, you will agree with me that they are much cleaner and clearer and well written than previously. Jodie's actually done, I believe, a phenomenal job in redeveloping and redesigning them, those learner guides, based on quite a lot of feedback. So it's sort of interesting. Your whole subject here is about how do you develop learning resources to meet the needs of your learners, and I guess one of the key things will be make them accessible, make sure that the learners can actually get them, because they're not much good if they can't. So we're going to be talking a little bit about Addie. We're going to meet Addie, and we're going to talk about Dick and Carrie's model as well. So let's jump straight into it, hey? So what's the point of having a model? Well, a model, a framework, a guideline, like anything, is often like a skeleton or a theoretical foundation that you can hang stuff off, a process that you can follow, a bit of a roadmap, a bit of a how-to kind of guide, which often, particularly in the higher education sector, I mean, as you know, we love our theories and our theoretical frameworks and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things that pulling together these kind of instructional design models is that they're based on other people's work who have done the research in thinking, what is the best way to do this? What's the best way to think about this? What's the best way to plan and execute this? And I think that's where Addie comes in. So really, the whole idea is that we're going to have a little talk about the steps in the instructional design process. So instructional design process as in writing and developing materials for learners. And we're going to use the Addie one. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about, broadly speaking, who's involved in the process and what role do they have in helping us, or us helping them, developing learner resources. So Addie is, as we saw before, actually I'll go back up to that, sorry. Oops. Where are you, Addie? So Addie stands for Analyse, Design, Develop, Implement, Evaluate, hence the acronym Addie. So I guess even just by looking at those words, you can imagine it starts from the conceptual, goes to the planning, does the developing, implementing, and evaluating it. Stepping through that process on a slightly more detailed level, when you're in the analysing phase, the things that you are doing is these. I'm not going to, read them all out to you, but you can tell that the activities that you're doing is you're sitting back, you're gathering information, you're thinking about what you're doing and why and what you'll need to do it. The kind of people that you need to be consulting with or mindful of or in communication with are those sorts of people who first said, we need this, because we need to see, well, what is it that you think we need? Sometimes people go, I need you to develop a learner guide for how to, wash the dishes in the office, in the office lunchroom. It's like, no, we don't need a training program for that. We just need a sign. Wash your dishes. So, identifying who said that we need a training program, we need a learner guide. Do we really? What's the point of it? Who's the audience? What are they going to be about? And often in big organisations, they'll have things like a project sponsor and a project manager. In small organisations, you might be all those things yourself. In fact, you might find yourself being all these things in lots of different, organisations. So now we've got a clear understanding of, okay, so what is it we're doing, why we're doing it, what money have we got, all right, what resources do we need, often what the timeline is. We're now going to start getting into the design process. So we haven't started writing yet or putting things on paper as such, but not for the actual resource, but we are beginning to start jotting down, making notes and stuff about, okay, what does this project look like? How long is it going to take to do it? What are the components of it? Is it just one short, maybe 5-page learner guide? Boom. Wow. Is it a course for accredited training? So if it's a course for accredited training, is it a qualification? Is it one unit of competency? Is it going to have your learner guides plus your assessor guides? Assessments are going to be involved. What's it going to look like? How's it going to be developed? How's it going to be delivered? Who's going to be involved? What's the content going to be? Where am I going to find my content? All of those kinds of activities and thought processes and stuff all, comes together. And again, who you're talking to, you still go back to that first person, unless it's yourself, but still go back to yourself going, hang on, why are we doing this? Is this the best way? Would I be better off making a 3-minute YouTube video clip saying to people, so when you want to change the toner in the printer, you do it like this, boom, boom, boom. Maybe that's a better way of getting across that message rather than developing a 25-page how to use the, printer and toner kind of booklet. So we're designing, we're going through, now we're getting to the nitty-gritty, we're developing it. And I really like this content expert writer, because sometimes that you definitely will be both, and particularly in your, fields of expertise, you'll be the expert writers. It could be at some stage that you go, I'm a content expert, but hey, I'm just learning how to do this. If there was somebody else in the organisation or somebody else you knew who was an expert instructional designer, you might go, I'll be the content expert, you be the developer, because that's your, that's the stuff that you do really well. I'll tell you the kinds of things that should be in it and the way it should be written and what language, and we'll take it from there. After this subject, at the end of this semester, you should be able to say, hey, I'm the expert in both things. I know my content, I know my, vocational stuff, and I'm pretty good, or I'm getting better, and I've just started becoming an instructional designer, and doing that. Basic activity is let's get them together. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's get them prepared and assembled. Now, as we know, there's no point doing something fabulous that looks great and sits on people's shelves and doesn't ever get used. We've got to actually implement it. We've got to use it. We've got to deliver it. We have to make sure that, everything is available, that people can access it, that it's not behind some crazy Moodle firewall or sent off to somewhere else. Is it accessible in the kind of format that people need? How do they get it? How much does it cost? Is it cost effective? And the people we're going to start talking to and who are going to start being involved at this stage are, of course, the users of these documents, the students, the facilitators, the technicians who are going to run the back stuff. So, and sometimes another step that's probably not in there as much is the whole trial it before you even implement it. Give your document to another facilitator and say, can you read this? Can you tell me if you think it makes sense? That whole joint sharing and collaboration really helps identify issues before they come to a head and before the students or the learners or the users really get to see them. We're coming to the end, people. And of course, no project is ever worth its salt if it hasn't been evaluated. And now that evaluation might take place, like I said, just after a little trial or a pilot. It might take place, you know, week 3 into a 15-week program. Maybe it'll just take place after a session, after the program's finished. But basically we need to know, did what we developed and designed and gave them, did it work? Was it fit for purpose? Did it meet their needs? Was it as clear as I thought it would be? And of course, what could be better? What improvements could there be? And who are we talking about here? You can almost see the full circle coming back, can't you? Obviously, the key person who says, hey, this was a great thing, thumbs up, is the person who's using it. So, you know, the students, the users, the end users and the facilitators, there's no use if you as the instructional designer go, best document I've ever produced, if the students are scratching their heads going, I don't understand this, and your facilitators are going, well, I just don't really even know how to use this. So, you know, we're all one team. And it's funny sometimes, maybe not the student, sometimes in small situations, you'll find yourself being all of these last 3. So you've gone, hey, I really need this. Okay, let me develop it. Then you go to use it and you're on page 4 and you go, whoops, I've, you know, duplicated a page twice, or I didn't quite put that in the right order or something. So, you know, I think we've all had situations like that. So that's our ADDIE model. Anyone want to say anything about that? A quick chat before we get on to our second model, which is only 2 slides. But over to you guys. Anything to say?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, I was going to say that was almost a bit of a deep sigh. Okay, great. So, look, ADDIE is highly used and very often referenced in the higher ed in particular world, and also actually in the vet sector a bit as well. But there are other models, of course, because, you know, we wouldn't be in education course if we couldn't talk about more than one model of something or more than one framework. Dick and Carey is just another one. It's kind of aligned in a way, or they've taken the ADDIE model and they've done some more stuff to it, made it a bit more of a multi-step systematic approach. And, you know, this is a lovely quote by Dick and Carey that basically it's when everything comes together, that's when you bring out the desired learner outcomes. So, you know, if one of those things aren't happening, learners can't learn. So as instructional designers, we play a really key role in helping those learners learn, even though in many cases we'll never even know their name. And they will never know ours unless we've got a bit of a CC on it. So unlike a facilitator where you build a relationship and stuff, you know, if you do instructional design work, you're often working away a lot of times by yourself with a bit of collaboration with your teams. You produce this thing, it's almost like a, you know, giving birth kind of process if it's a big enough program, and you send it off to the wild where, you know, sometimes you get feedback saying, yeah, it's an ugly kid. Sorry about that. Yeah, didn't really meet our needs at all. Then back to the drawing board and start again. So Dick and Carey, like I said, have taken the ADDIE model and they've just done a little bit of a slightly different kind of look. Nothing like a flowchart, is there? But you can see the similarities. identify your goals. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? Okay, well, how will we know it's done well? Do this instructional analysis we talked about before. What are we going to be getting them to actually know or do? Come on through the process of, okay, so is this going to work? Is this going to meet the needs? Maybe there's a revision of instructions. Have a strategy of how we're going to actually use this and put it out. Okay, let's develop. And interesting, they say, and select the instructional materials. Their model is a bit more recent than the original ADDIE. So these days, as we know, a lot of resources include links to videos or, government websites and things like that. So it's not always about writing it, it's about finding it and selecting it. And then, of course, keeping links updated, because if you have got a bad link, you can't do anything. Well, that rhymes. If you've got a bad link, you can't do anything. And then, of course, about once it's developed, have that formative evaluation. So in the process of, as it's being used, ongoing, how's that evaluation there, what's happening with it. And then, of course, at the end of a program or a cycle or a something, have that summative evaluation, what was good, what needs improvement, and back to the beginning, and on we go again. So again, with that first one that we talked about, the idea of having a model overall is to have some kind of a skeleton or a framework or a path that thinks, step through the process to get the best outcome. Next, we're going to look at a little bit about who we might work or consult with and why. Very similar to what we did before, so we'll flick through these pretty quickly. And there are a few other models in your learner guide as well, as you'll find now that you can see your learner guide. So who else would we talk about, and why would we talk about them? So really this does sort of cover a bit that was kind of there in the ADDIE slide, so I won't spend too long, and you can read. But when we think about who's the person who's identified the need, it's interesting that it could be so many different types of people. Like, it's not necessarily just either, the teaching part of an organisation, or even necessarily management. Sometimes it could be, something from like the WHS coordinator. And who I think is missing there, the biggest one, is actual team members, workers, people doing the stuff. They are often the ones that say, hey, we need something to help us do this job more effectively, more efficiently. If you're bringing in a new piece of equipment, we need to know how to use it. Again, in big organisations, you have a sponsor, and they're normally a department type person. They're the ones who, often have the money and the resources and give it approval, process it through the decision-making tree. Depending on how big your bureaucracy is that you work for, is how big your tree is. And again, if your bureaucracy is pretty big, you'll have a sponsor, but then you'll have a manager. So the manager is the person who pulls together the people. They're the one, I shouldn't say he, they are the ones who keep track of how's this project going, what do you need, what steps do we need to take, how can we make it happening. And of course, there's this instructional designer. Such a lovely flash title. And they're the ones who come in and say, look, the big picture stuff, how are we going to structure this, what sequence of events and content are we going to put together, what do we actually need to develop, what kind of format will it be in, how will it be made available, and things like that. Oftentimes, particularly in VET, the instructional designer, the big picture person, is also the actual doer and the person who has to actually do it. So, of course, the other one could be the content expert and writer. This is what I mean by we are often our own instructional designers and our content expert and writer. And so our job is to, take on board the plan, the objectives, the goals, and pull it all together in line with the plan. And yes, it is true that if it's a big project, sometimes it's more than one person that's actually the person doing the doing. So it could be a team of people going, you know, you write this part, I'll write this part, you write that part, which if it's a very big project, you know, you need it if it's got to be out in a certain time. But the more people you have writing for the same kind of project, the more chance you've got of people's own writing styles coming out. And it can look a little bit mishmashed. So there needs to be some quite firm guidelines and style guides and directions about how stuff should look if you're going to have more than one writer. Otherwise, you just end up with a bit of a mess. Content editor, so a bit of a, responsibility job. So they're often the proofreader as well, the fresh set of eyes. Because as I'm sure you guys all know yourselves, you know, when you're head down and elbows deep into writing something, it makes perfect sense to you, perfect sense. And even if you edit it 5 times, you hand it over to somebody else and they go, you know, pick up the spelling mistakes, you know, the wrong to in the wrong place, or O-N instead of O-N-E, and, you know, all of those kinds of things. Someone else who might be involved is this graphic designer or technology expert to take our text, our words, and do flash things with them. Again, sometimes we have to be all those things ourselves, which can be a bit of a challenge sometimes. And here we are, we're getting down to the implementation people, you know, the facilitator, the person who's going to use this for the delivery to the learners. You know, technician, IT, keeping the program up and running online. Our Moodle technicians, and there's a big team of them, are probably getting quite tired of seeing my little IT tickets pop up. I'm sure when they see Kathleen's Rubin, they roll their eyes and have a deep sigh. So yeah, these are people, you know, they do a good job in the background, and when everything's fine, we never even think of them. We only ever think of them when there's a problem, which is a bit sad in a way, but you know, it's the way it goes. And finally, ta-da, really, you know, they're the first and the last. They're the reason why we're here. It's, you know, our learners, our users, our participants in our courses. They're the reasons why we're writing stuff in the beginning, and they're the ultimate judges on whether it worked, and what we can do better. So, ta-da. I'm mindful, I'll stop for a second. Is there anything about that stuff that anybody would like to say?
You're very kind about your technicians.
Go on, Shirella, sorry.
I said you're very kind in regards to your technicians.
I'm very kind. Oh, well, we're all one big team here, aren't we? We're all one big team working together. So, and I know that they don't obviously go out of their way to make things awkward and stuff. It must be frustrating for them as well. So, there you go. And Cheryl, were you going to say something?
No, I was just saying I'm fine. I don't have
okay.
any comments.
Great. Okay, are you right, Jackie, too?
Yeah, I'm still here. That's fine.
No worries, mate. That's cool. Okay, so that's really a bit of, you know, diving a bit deeper into the content. Now you've got the learner guides. I'm sure that they'll be, you know, a really good read for you over that. These forum starters for week 3 and week 4 for this subject. Again, you can see that idea about having a model. If it resonates with you, talk about it and its key features. And week 4 is consider the type of learner you'll be delivering training to. and discuss how you might collect that information about them, what information you might need, and how you'll analyse it and do it. So if either one of those forum discussion starters, you know, tickle your fancy, or you think, oh, I've got something to say about that, you might choose to do up a forum post, do it direct into the forum box underneath it, and if possible, do include one reference, and then, you know, that can be used. I'll be tracking them. I'll put some feedback under your post, and then I'll be tracking them, and that will be, you know, go towards one of X number towards that assessment of participation in the forum. So that's a bit of an ongoing assessment task. So,
Excuse me, Kath.
yes, yes.
Does it matter how many you put in?
No, it doesn't matter how many put in. You can answer everyone if you want to. On the rubrics, the marking rubrics, you'll see starting, well, forget fail, but starting from, you know, the second lowest one, it says, oh, 2 forum posts. So, you know, you get, I can't remember the numbers. You know, say you get 2 out of 10. Yeah. You go up to the end and you go 5 or more forum posts. Boom, you've already got high numbers. So to maximise, you know, it's a numbers game, to maximise your numbers for this assessment task, do 5 or more and make sure that those 5 or more are referenced. And then, you know, assuming you don't write complete and utter rubbish, which none of you guys would.
Is it the initial one or is it a reply to somebody? Because I'll get stuck.
It can be either. It can be either. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if I saw 3 replies and I didn't see even one initial post, say, is that Cheryl speaking, is it? Or
No,
was that
Jackie.
Cheryl? Oh, Jackie, thanks, Jackie. Say from you, say, Jackie, when I got your 3rd reply in, I'd probably shoot you an email direct and go, hey, Jack, I think you probably should go in there and at least do one direct one, you know, just so there's good
know
blend.
if we can mix them around.
Yeah, exactly. But none of that is specified. So it doesn't say you must, you know, out of the 5, there must be 5 starters and 3 replies or whatever. So that's open to interpretation. Yeah, but good question. So, and like, if I did send you an email like that, Jackie, saying, hey mate, you've done 3 replies and no beginning ones, you could send me an email back saying, well, frankly, Kath, that's perfectly fine, because it doesn't tell me that it has to be any other way. And I'd have to go, touche, so true. All right, okay. Hey, we're doing well. How good's our timing? All righty, so what's next? Next week we're going to focus on weeks 3 and 4 of the subject, the other subject, identifying training needs. Between now and then, you know, look, you guys are going to have enough to do just getting your heads around the learner guides and getting up to speed on those. But, you know, think about that next assessment, which is due, what did we say? Not this Sunday, it's next Sunday, isn't it? Or is yours due this Sunday?
The subject guide says 8th, but your PowerPoint says 15th.
Yes, that's right. Because I got Sue to update that, because I thought it wasn't fair with all there was a bit of dramas with different Moodles and stuff. And so really, you know, the 8th was too soon. So yeah, it is the 15th. Excellent. So that's, you know, another week away. You don't really need an assessment due, what, 2nd week back. That's, anyway.
Be rough.
It was a bit rough. Yeah, absolutely. That's it. So good. Getting towards the end, what we covered, progress points and assessments, some content on our resource development. We met Addie. So that was cool. We talked about the forums and we talked about what stuff we can do next. So as usual, and as always, thank you for your time, and I'll see you around the forums next week and online this time next week. So, oh, Cheryl, Cheryl left me. I know you're back, are you?
Oh, she's back. Yep.
Oh, good. But then it looks like she might have left again, or maybe not. I can see you here. No, you're there. All right, well, guys, that's great. If anyone's got any questions they'd like recorded, which to be honest is a bit silly because the three of you are all here, so I don't know who'd be listening to the recording really. But if you want something recorded for, prosperity's sake or something, you want to go back and listen to it, speak now. If you don't have anything you need recorded, we might shut down the recording so it's got a bit of time to save before my next session. So does anyone have anything they want to say?
No, thank you.
No, thanks.
Wonderful, guys. Really great session. Okay, and I'm just about to close the recording. Thank you again for your time. Fabulous. I'm going to shut the recording and stop sharing my screen.